looking back at me. Eyes I've never witnessed, nostrils I've never nosed, ears I have yet to eavesdrop upon, a palate begging to be placated, fingers fawning for a feel. This man in the mirror, who is he? For he is not I, and I am not she. She is the bane of my existence, but a swain at my persistence. Her surety is to be admired. She whispers sweet nothings, but with bitter results she talks of the coming, but when questioned, she falts. Her nightly complexion, with stars for her eyes, even at her inception did ever belie. Flooded with fantasies of love and audacity to hope, she must fix her face, she must throw up her trope. This woman in the mirror, who is she? For she is not I, and I am not she.
Insecurity.
I'm right now Bronx, born and raised, 22 years old, filmmaker. What else? As far as my family life, it was kind of in shambles. My mother and I never really got along, and then when I was 18, I found out that my father, that I believed to be my father since birth, wasn't my biological father, and my whole family knew.
Wow.
Yeah, so they was like keeping a secret from me for 18 years. And even after the secret was held, nobody really, after the secret came out, was revealed, no one really helped me pick up the pieces. They were just like, oh, you should be grateful. You're not missing out on anything. It's fine, you know.
How did you find out that your father wasn't your real father?
My stepmom, his wife, basically hinted towards it.
How did she tell you? How'd that conversation go?
So I remember one time I came over because she lived in Connecticut, so I would spend like a weekend or two over there. And I came over and I was telling her, like, oh, you know, being that I'm from the Bronx and it's predominantly Spanish, most people often mistake me for Spanish, and they're surprised when I can't speak it. And I was having that conversation how, like, people judge me by the color of my skin and my hair, and they would expect me to be Spanish. And she's like, I don't know, maybe you should ask your dad. And I was like, what do you mean? And she kept on saying stuff like that, like, oh, you know there's some things that you might not know, and you should question it, like keep on asking me to be a little bit more inquisitive. So I kind of took her up upon it. So my dad came home later that night, and I told him, like, yo, what's up? Like, this is the conversation that happened. And he was like, go ask your mom, and when your mom tells you whatever she tells you, call me and tell me what she tells you, and we'll speak. And that's what really piqued my interest. I was like, And my dad and I were really close, so I was just like, he would tell me straight up what the truth is. So I knew that I was missing something. So I went to my mom and I asked her, and I was like, listen, I'm the only one who looks different, you know? I have two younger sisters. I have, two younger stepsisters by my father. They look like him. I have a younger sister and older brother who both look like my mom, identical. They look like, everyone looks the same except me. And so it's like, what's up? And she tells me, oh, my grandmother is Indian. And she shows me like a photo. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Like, you know, people, genetics skip generations all the time. So I'm thinking that's what it is. Come to find out. So I tell my dad, and he's like, no, that's not the truth. And
wow.
And then he gives me like the full story. So, and he's like, oh, when you were 2 years old, I took you to go get a DNA test because my coworkers kept on telling me that you don't look like me, and I would always bring it. And I was his first child, so he would always bring me around.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was tough for him more than me, to be honest. He cried when he told me the truth, and I was just like, my life's a movie. I thought it was like some Cinderella thing. It kind of was, this evil stepmom, but yeah, it wasn't cool.
So your father left when you were 5 years old. Was there any other male figures in the house?
No, my mom never really like was exchanging men in the house, but there she did remarry. No, she didn't remarry because she was never married. Her first marriage was to this guy who, when we met him, we come to find out later that she was already married to this guy. When I turned 12 and I was in 6th grade, he began molesting me. And within that 12th year of my life, later on, as I was approaching my 13th year, he raped me. And that happened consecutively until I was finishing middle school. And yeah, until my senior year of middle school. And I never told anyone. I haven't told her that he actually raped me in the bed that they shared. So.
Wow. So what happened in the bed that they shared is.
Yeah.
Oh my. So how did it happen the first time? Or like.
It started with the molestation. So I remember, my mom. I didn't have a TV in my room. So my mom used to work nights, so I used to always sleep in my mom's room, and he owned his own mechanic shop, so he would come home late or whatever, and he would come home and I would be in the bed, and he wouldn't wake me up. We would sleep, and then we would wake up, and he would tell me, "Oh, go get dressed" or whatever, because he would take me to school. And then one day I was laying there, and I felt someone's hand on my upper thigh, and at first I didn't really think nothing of it. I'm like, oh, someone's trying to wake me up, so I'm like, getting jarred up out of my sleep. And then he starts, fingering me. And I was, really just shocked and, I didn't know what to do. I never really explored myself sexually that way first. That was, my first real sexual experience. So I was just there, and I remember, you know that feeling when you have to pee? And you have nowhere to pee, so you kind of clench your legs. I was like that. I was just so awkward. I didn't know what to do. And that was that. He just did that, and then I just stayed there, and then I acted like I was sleeping. And then I remember him asking me, "Oh, does it hurt?" And I didn't say anything. And then a few moments later, then he stopped, and I just stood there, and he kind of just stopped, and I just, I don't remember, maybe I fell asleep later on that night or whatever, but the first time he actually physically penetrated me was when I was 13 years old, and that was after consecutively touching me here and there. I would go to the bathroom, he'd follow me in the bathroom, or
who was your other family members?
So they would be in their rooms, or, and that's, that was one of the things. As I grew older, I learned to only be outside of my room when other people were around. I couldn't be, you're one person when you're in the face of your family. You're one person. When you're with your friends, you're kind of let loose. I couldn't even be that person with my friends because they were all going through this stage where they were growing up or whatever, and I've already know what that's all about. So I had to pretend as if I didn't, or be quiet, and I felt so lonely. That was.
How did you feel in the bed in the moment at that time, though?
In the bed? Oh, I was so scared. I literally remember having my legs straight like this and just looking up at the ceiling, and he was on top of me, and that was the first time I smelled semen. And it was so disgusting. I smelled his sweat, and I still smell it. That's crazy. And it was really crazy. I feel in that moment, I just put myself somewhere else, because I was so used to being molested before then that I knew how to just put my mind somewhere else. So when that happened, I just was I just stood still. I couldn't tell my mom. He was abusing my mom. He was abusing my mom for years. So he was the head of the household, basically. And furthermore, he pinned my mom and I against each other. He would tell her "Oh, I know that you're up to something. I know that you're doing something. I know that this is happening because Raynell told me." He wanted a rift between us so that whenever he did do whatever he did, it would be no bridge for me to to be like, oh, Ma, this actually happened. I didn't want to go to school because he would have to take me to school. I didn't want to go to school because I felt different from everybody around me, and I felt like I was hiding something, and it was hard for me to concentrate. Then when I was on my way, when I was home, I didn't want to go home because I knew that he would come home from work around 8 o'clock. So there was only 3 hours when I was home that I was able to be like, okay. And those times my mom would be home and her and I wasn't at the best of terms, and it was just a lot for me during my adolescent years growing into adulthood that I just... Because I remember even one time, me laying stoic there, he would be like, oh, you're so boring, do something, and I just, I didn't know what to do. I was 13 and I didn't have any affections to provoke.
How'd you react when they say something like that?
I didn't do anything. I just remember thinking what do you want me to do?
When it all was going down, was there ever a time that you told me you didn't want to do it?
No, I didn't say anything. I didn't feel like I could say anything because, like I said, he was abusing my mom, and...
So you were scared to say...
I was scared to say anything to him because he used to be my mom, and my mom was the one who used to beat me. So that's the master slave mentality.
Yeah.
So it was I kind of made that distinction from an early age that my mom really didn't have the most control of the situation. So I didn't feel like I could tell her about the situation. I didn't feel like I could tell him no. And I didn't even know the words for no in a situation like that. You know?
Sure. If there was anything you could tell him, what would you say?
I wouldn't really tell him anything. I would more so ask him questions. I would ask him, why me and not your daughter? You know? The same respect and the same reasons why you wouldn't to your own daughter who is basically 1 year younger than me is the same reasons why you shouldn't have done it in the first place. So you knowingly knew that something was wrong because you would praise her for her virginity and her purity, and yet rob me of mine.
With your brother being around, you didn't feel comfortable telling him?
My brother is my best friend, and I didn't want... Because my brother used to stand up for my mom's honor when he would be abusive to my mom, and he actually pulled out a knife for my brother. So it was crazy.
Wow.
It was not easy.
That's crazy.
You know, so I kind of felt like I had to be the superhero for everybody. I had to keep this secret because I didn't want all this catastrophic stuff to happen.
Makes sense.
So I was just like, you know what? I'm just not going to say nothing. I'm just going to take it. And besides, there's nothing nobody could do because when something happened to them, they didn't do anything. So I was just like, damn, we're all kind of at the mercies of this situation. And so I was just like, whatever. And I didn't want to be the one nobody wants to be that one.
You went from dealing with that traumatic situation to then finding out that your real father wasn't your father.
So I was...
Holy crap.
I've never felt so alone in my life. I felt like everyone was against me. I questioned every intention. I was alone. I was so alone. And I couldn't tell anybody that I was alone because I was holding all these secrets. I couldn't tell anybody how I truly felt because I didn't want to be a victim. And I didn't know who to turn to. Because my whole family knew that my father wasn't my father, and they lied to my face. And then they told me that I should feel okay with it. And then, even to this day, I have no information. Even though I know that my real father is not my dad, there's no information that I have. Damn, this shit's making me sad. There's no information that I have for me to feel like it's like they telling me this, and then it's like that's it, you know? It's like, okay, deal with it. And that was literally the same situation why I didn't want to say anything to anybody with the prior situation. So it's just like...
Yeah, I'm really sorry you had to go through that.
Me too.
That sounds very, very lonely.
Yeah, I'm sure people are in more lonely situations, but it was hard for me at such a young age. And
this was an interesting, crazy story. I wanted her to speak about this to you guys just because I think the story could definitely help a lot of women, young ladies who are going through the situation themselves at home. And if you're afraid to talk to someone or tell anyone about what you're going through, as you see, there are millions of other women out there who are going through the same thing as you.
You
And
don't have to feel so alone. It's a very lonely feeling, but the only way out is through.
And I, as a male as well, I especially think that everyone thinks that right now with all the scandals going on with in acting in Hollywood and the managers and the producers and these type of things and the show hosts, people sometimes forget that there's just as much craziness going on behind closed doors in people's homes. So imagine that if you're at work and you're going through sexual harassment or molestation or whatever, it's bad, but at least you can go back home to it. When it's happening at home, that's supposed to be a sanctuary. That's probably literally living in hell.
It's slow torture.
So what makes you feel at peace in life?
What makes you feel at peace? What makes me feel at peace? Writing. I love writing. Whether it be short stories, whether it be feature-length films, whether it be poetry or rapping or plays or poetry. I love writing. It feels like me creating my own world. You know? The sense of power that comes from writing. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, right?